Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I have a very short one in which I want to show you the cost analysis tool of AKS. Last week I had one of my teams come to me and they asked me to help them to figure out how much the AKS clusters actually cost. And this reminded me that it's not that easy to figure out how much a cluster costs, especially if you're new to AKS. Luckily, we have the cost analysis tool, and this easily displays all the costs of your cluster. And this also gives you quite interesting insights. So today I want to show this to you. Let's switch over to the Azure portal, and I'm going to show you how to enable it and then what information it gives you. Here in the Azure portal, I've already a cluster running. And on the left side, we can see here the cost analysis. But if I click on it, I will get somehow an error message that says it is only supported for enterprise agreement or Microsoft customer agreement subscriptions. Another requirement is that your AKS cluster is using the standard or premium tier. If you're using the free tier, you also can't use the cost analysis tool. Especially in the production environment, you always should use at least the standard tier, because the free tier doesn't give you an SLA for the control plane of your cluster. Before I'm going to show you how this looks like, let's switch over to the terminal and I'm going to show you how you can install it on an existing or a new cluster if you have an enterprise agreement or Microsoft customer agreement subscription. If you're using the Azure CLI, you only need one additional parameter to tool. So let's paste it here. And it's the same if you use AKS create to create a new cluster or update to update an existing cluster. You have to provide the resource group in which your cluster is located, the name of your cluster, and then the enable cost analysis parameter. That's all you have to do. Once you add this parameter, the cost analysis tool will be installed. Since my demo user doesn't have an enterprise agreement subscription, I had to use one of my other users. But since it's running in a corporate tenant, I didn't want to risk to leak any confidential information. Therefore, I took a couple screenshots and I'm going to show you now on the screenshots how everything looks once you have set up the cost analysis tool. Actually, before I show you the AKS cost analysis tool, I want to show you the cost analysis of the subscription. That's a built-in feature in the Azure portal. You don't have to install anything. And if you open your subscription, you can see all the costs inside your subscription. There you can also filter by resource group, by location, service, specific dates, and so on. What we can see here is, even though I only have one AKS cluster in the subscription, I have here many different resources. I have virtual machines, the AKS cluster itself, a load balancer, virtual network, storage, bandwidth, and so on. This makes sense because I know that all of these are resources and components of my AKS cluster. But if you have many other resources, for example, other load balancer, other virtual machines, it's getting really hard to figure out how much your AKS cluster actually costs. Also, if you're new to Kubernetes, you might just look at Azure Kubernetes Service here in the cost and think that's all the costs of my cluster. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. One workaround would be you take the costs of AKS, and then you also take the costs of the resource group where all your resources of the cluster run in. By default, the resource group is named MC underscore the name of the cluster underscore the location, I think. But it also only gives you the costs in total. It doesn't give you the exact costs of each individual resources. And it also doesn't tell you, am I fully utilizing my cluster? It is running idle mostly and I just waste money. So I don't know exactly what is going on. And this is where the AKS cost analysis comes in very handy. So on the second screenshot, I go back to my AKS cluster to the cost analysis tab. And here I have the cost analysis installed. And I can see I have the same costs as in the subscription cost analysis, except that I think I took the screenshot one day before the other one. But here I can see all the resources I'm using and what they cost. So first I have my AKS cluster that costs 2 francs and 12 Rappen. But then I can also see I have my virtual machines here, load balancer, public IP address, and what I find also very interesting is I have my data transfer, so the bandwidth. I can see exactly how much I use it, what is going on. And what's also very interesting is here these 2 columns, the idle and the used one. So my virtual machines cost me in total 1 franc 93, but 152 are idle, and I only use them for 31 Rappen. So this means I waste a lot of money, and this is an indication that I can scale down my cluster. Either I run less nodes or I run smaller nodes. Also, especially for new developers that just start out with AKS, I can see everything that's going on, and I can see how many resources my AKS cluster actually has. So it's helpful on the cost side, but also on the learning side. That's already everything I wanted to show you. The cost analysis for AKS is a great tool in my opinion, because it's very easily installed. It gives you a great insight in all the resources, how much they cost, and also which one you're using and which one you're just paying for and not using. I hope this was interesting for you. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more of this kind of videos, I publish one every week on Tuesday, and I will see you next week with a new video.